Hello, good evening, good morning, depending on where you're watching me from. I'm so excited to be with you today again. My name is Adetum Otekola, and I'm an associate of Start Right Academy. I hope you've had a good week thus far. I hope you've had a very a very productive week at that. So today again, we're going to be talking about family life, and we have an interesting topic before us this evening. We're going to be talking about discussing health and medical choices before marriage. So I'd like to hear from you guys. How has your week been? I don't want to assume I'm by myself. Can you tap in the chat box? Let me know that I'm not just the only one in this room. Okay, so I see you, Tinu Ade. Thank you for coming online. Thank you. So it's going to be very insightful and very straightforward. Like I've always said, marriage is not a 1 meter, 100-meter dash, it's a marathon race. And any marriage that is going to succeed must be built on faith, must be built on trust, must be built on love and faith in one another. And so, one key thing that has to happen is very clear communications about every and anything. So, today we're going to be discussing health and medical choices to make before marriage. Why is health important in marriage? If you are not healthy, you cannot have a healthy relationship. And it will be very helpful if you can at least let your spouse know what the state of your medical condition is. It doesn't make any sense to hide your medical status because this can create a generational problem. Now, talking about health issues is not necessarily your physiological health, even mental health is very important. So, I'm going to be examining certain, 5 points that you need to look at, 5 areas that you need to look at that is very important, at least 5 major areas. As Africans and in this part of the world, most of us just imagine that even if you don't talk about it, God has your back and all that. But it's important you tell your spouse what condition you have found yourself. Now, if peradventure you're married already and you're not, you discover certain things along the line, it's not a hopeless situation. If we have understanding, we can have a strategy to work out whatever it is, you know. So I want us to examine certain things. The things, at least 5 major tests, you need to watch out for. Number one test is HIV and STD test. You should be able to at least look out for the possible infections that your spouse may have: HIV, hepatitis B and C, gonorrhea, syphilis, yeast infection. The knowledge of your partner's status should guide you in taking proper measures to protect yourself. So, peradventure, you're so in love, but at least you have an idea that can actually protect yourself. So, maybe you're already in the relationship, that will at least reveal all those things. So, you will take an informed decision whether you want to continue in the relationship or not. Another test to look at is fertility test. Now, people marry for different reasons. Some would just say, I want to marry for companionship. Some may have other questions. A lot of us take things for granted. You will assume that my partner should, as a woman, should be able to give me babies, and my husband too is also, medically okay to give babies. So it's very important as enlightened people to go and do those kind of tests before you get into the marriage and start to know what to expect. Us, for example, when we want to have a baby, we live on other people's myths and ideas and what our parents went through. But it's very interesting to know that in the Western world, those things are actually documented. What to expect when expecting, what to expect the first 24 or 48 months of having a baby. It makes life easy. Instead of us waiting for our mothers or fathers to, mothers especially to come and wait on us because we have a baby. It makes you informed so that you know when your body is going through certain changes, you know you know what is going on and what to do and what to actually expect. So one is very important that if you choose that you want to have babies, as people intending to get married in the relationship, you should go for medical tests to know whether you are both fertile to have babies. Another major one, I consider it major because it creates generational problems, is to check out your genotype, to do a genotype test. Now, what is a genotype? So you need to find out, is yours compatible with that of your spouse? You know, the major A, C, S, C, and SS. If you have an AA plus AA and plus, and you one spouse is AA plus AA, excellent. But when you start to have AC plus SC, that's incompatible. You have AS and AS, incompatible. AS and SC, incompatible. Now, I'm not a medical doctor, but wisdom has taught us that, and Google is your friend. There's so many things you can find out why certain things are the way they are. A lot of people did not find out or believe that God would do it, the genotype will change, and they go ahead and marry. And then when they have children that are SS, they begin to go through untold pain. The children are suffering, the parents are suffering. In some cases, one spouse may abandon the other, and then the other person is stuck with that baby and the pain for life. So it's very important that we go with notice into marriage. What exactly are you going into? What is the genetic component of the person you are going to bind yourself with? Very important, very, very important. So I said it could create generational problems because you have given birth to an SS who now has to struggle even with getting a partner. They go through medical issues. There are financial implications that come with that as well. So are you really ready? Is something you want to build a house, for example. You need to lay a foundation. And the family is the strongest nation on earth. So how are you building that foundation? How are you preparing for the journey? Another thing that you should look out for is the blood group of your spouse. So one thing, what is blood group? People just hear this thing, AAAS, then O positive, O negative, and so on. And so what is blood group? Blood type is a classification of blood based on the presence or absence of antibodies and inherited antigenic substances on the surface of the red blood cell. So basically, you need to be sure whether your spouse, there are many, there are, if you, I mean, the blood group falls under various categories such as A, B, O, or AB. So you need to find out and be informed. Is your spouse, what is the status of your spouse's the blood group? There's nothing God cannot do, but you need to know that this is what you are going into and calculate the cost, whether you really want to go on that journey. Now, so there are also long-term or chronological medical conditions, So knowledge is powerful, and medical science have done with a lot of research, have come up with ways we can know medical conditions even before it begins to start. Now, for me, one of the things it does for you as a person is that it would even help you one another to manage your lifestyle. For example, you know that you have a family, you have a the your family. If you dig into your family history, I know that there are series of generational diseases that has occurred. It will be your wisdom to learn and know how to prevent. For example, if you come from a family where there's diabetes is predominant, or there's high blood pressure, or people have high cholesterol, what that tells you simply is you have to manage your diet. There's certain things you don't need to do. You have to make, exercises which should be your best friend. You will run away from fizzy drinks, so it's just wisdom. So that even the wife in cooking, she will know how she wants to cook the food, or if the husband is the one doing the role of cooking, both of you will know what you should eat and what you shouldn't eat. So it's about minding your business. You have found out that this is what works for both of you, and then you just go for what works so that you can live a healthy life. You are just taking information to be able to know what to do and what not to do. So I want to take a pause here. Does anybody have any question? I want to be sure that I'm not just by myself in this room. I don't know if anybody has any question for me. Or have you been listening? What have you heard me say thus far? So I see, okay, thank you. Trusted support, thank you. Emmanuel says very insightful. So I'm sure I'm not just the only one here. So basically, when you have come to terms with those are just 5 basic tests that it's a must. And for as I won't say little, because 26,000 naira in Nigeria is a lot of money, but it will save you a whole life. I mean, it will save you a lot of heartache. At least you are informed about the journey you are getting into. Now, even if there's certain tests that somebody will say, I'm a virgin, I don't need to do even STD, for example, sexually transmitted diseases. Some of those diseases are they're actually, it doesn't have to be through sexual intercourse. Maybe for using a bathroom that is common to many other persons, you can actually get infected with such diseases. So whether you're a virgin or anyhow you want to look at it, it's important you go for those tests. Whether you've been a priest or a sister and you have now chosen to go the way of marriage, I want to encourage you, ensure that you go for the test. Now, let's look at a different scenario. So what if you've been married? You now suddenly discovered that your spouse is actually, has some health challenges. What exactly do you do? How do you cope with such a situation? Is it enough to walk away from the marriage? I would say no. Because if your marriage is based on trust and is based on love, I believe that one of the things that love does is for us to be kind to one another. So I want to examine some certain things. What can we really do when you found yourself in this kind of situation? So one thing that I think you should do is to communicate. If you are the one that is affected, you want to communicate with your partner and say, hey, this is what I found out. It may not be an easy thing because you may suffer rejection. The person wasn't expecting it. And then you suddenly discover that your spouse is very ill. Now, is it possible that genuinely the person did not know that he or she had that kind of condition? You need to show some empathy. So the first thing is to genuinely communicate. Don't keep it to yourself because it will be worse when the healthier partner finds out what is wrong with you. So I would recommend that you should please communicate. The next thing I would recommend that you do is to ease stressful emotions. Of course, naturally, you are bound to be discouraged. You can even go into depression. But one of the things that you can do is to say, this has been discovered. And what are the medical ways that you can overcome it? And if it is a terminal disease, what can you do to manage the pain until the person dies? I have had a loved one who had cancer and the person lived 16 years afterwards. But the doctors had told her you can only live for 6 months after. But by God's grace and by wisdom and counsel, because the person didn't joke with her medical appointment, she took all the drugs, she was listening to the doctor, and she stayed for 16 years on one kidney. And that was my mom. I'm not making up the story. She stayed 16 years later and God helped her until she finally went to rest. So it's important that when you communicate, you need to seek medical counsel. You can find early detection. There are so many diseases now that are curable, even if it is terminal, you can still manage it without pain until when you finally go to rest. So I would recommend that you ease the stressful emotions. Don't listen to negative people. Some people will just go and say, oh, this was what killed this person and that person. Take some time off, go for counseling, listen to your doctor, and be a good patient. Don't be so difficult. And make sure you go to professionals. Of course, we cannot overemphasize the place of prayers. But for the person that is ill, he or she needs the support of the spouse to at least stay alive and have feel loved and not rejected. So another thing I would encourage you to do is to watch out for depression. If the person is by themselves, thinking, because many things would happen when one is not medical fit. Mental health can occur, and then it can bring about depression. So you need to encourage that person. Another thing I would recommend is that both partners have to recognize that their relationship will not necessarily be as excellent as it was before. Maybe little or even no more sex. How do you cope with it? You have to discuss it. Maybe the times you used to have together, go for a walk, the other partner may be on a wheelchair. If you are going for a walk, would you be willing to push them? You have to discuss the matters that surround that kind of situation. Now, lest I forget, when I was talking about the medical issues that people go through, say there are history of families that have mental illness. So the mental state, so physical being, the health issues is not only physiological, there could be mental illness. There are families that have that history. Don't be ashamed to let your spouse know. Maybe there are things that trigger such mental conditions. You may want to consider what it is and what you can do to prevent such. So, in a situation whereby it's already happening, we're talking about how you can help your spouse, the person affected, to stay alive and at least enjoy whatever is remaining of their life. We could say it's 1 year. Like my mom, she lived for 16 years, but she had our love and support 100%. And that also helped her to live longer. So you cannot one. So I one the last thing I said, the last point I made was that you should acknowledge the loss of the way your relationship is not a loss, sorry, a change in the way the relationship has been. So you can also consider counseling. How do you handle it? Naturally, the person that is ill may go into mood swings. The person taking care of the person who is unwell would also feel bad sometimes. So you have to be patient with one another. Now, you need to also state your needs. Maybe the person that is ill needs to eat certain diets. Would you be willing to compromise and say, okay, so in the house now we have to eat less salt, less pepper, or things that are healthy for somebody that has diabetes? What if you don't like fish? That means you may have to start having two pots in the house. So, are you willing to make that kind of sacrifice? If you don't have time, are you willing to employ someone, maybe a chef or a dietitian, that will help to make it better and the person to feel, much better? Then, even you as the caregiver, you need to watch out for your health. It's possible that, even physical and emotionally, you may be affected. You that you're taking care of the other person. You may start having withdrawal syndromes because you're feeling bad. You don't want to talk to anybody. Loss of interest in activities that were previously enjoyed. Feeling irritable and hopeless and helpless. Changes in appetite and even loss of weight, even in your sleep patterns, these things can be affected. So there are things that are bound to happen. So what do we do? You have to walk around it and see how best you can help yourself. I'll give this example. A whole tanker, for those of us in Africa, we still use a lot of diesel and petrol, to power. So you see tankers moving to supply the gas stations. The tanker that is carrying petrol also needs to be fueled for him to get to all the locations he needs to get to. So if you're taking care of people, you cannot pour out of an empty cup. You need to take care of yourself to be able to take care of another. So give yourself some breaks. If you need to, take a break, maybe have somebody else come wait on your loved one. That can be very helpful. The two of you cannot be ill at the same time. That would be a total breakdown of the whole family's law and order. Now, you need to also strengthen your social connections. The Bible says that a good heart, a merry heart doeth good, you know. And so, you need to laugh, you need to stay connected to people. Don't cut yourself off, don't be isolated. There's nothing new under the sun. If it has happened, that means that it can be handled. So don't cut yourself off. Then you need to address the financial strain, possibly because of, the health issues. You cannot attract and have as much income as you have earned before. What can you do? Can you work from home? There are so many job offers now for work from home adults. You need to see what you can do. Or maybe you want to do multiple streams of income. You want to do some partnerships and collaboration that will help you to stay afloat mentally and financially. You can imagine if there's no money even in the family, it's going to cause further strain, apart from the mental issue that has happened. Then you need to price each other. So for that person that has been terribly ill, you need to at least you need to appreciate your spouse for taking time off to wait on you. And of course, that kind of situation can actually bring a bond in your relationship. you get to talk more, you are together more. In every situation, it depends on how you look at it, your perspective. Something positive can come out of it. So I don't know if you have any questions at this point. Do you have any questions for me, or you want to add to what I have said? I'd like to take a pause and hear from you. Thank you very much. Lasma Window, I hear you say you're following. My Flow Hub, thank you for joining today. Do we have any questions for me? Maybe there are people in this situation and they're wondering how they can come out of it. I'd like to hear from you. Okay, I'm looking at the comments in the comment section. Does anybody have anything to say here? Okay, I'm just seeing comments. Well done, we're following. Insightful. Thank you very much. I think that makes me know that I'm not the only one here. So one of my closing remarks will be that, there's so much knowledge all over the world that we cannot afford to be novice. Gone are the days whereby you walk blindly into relationships and you don't know, you walk into relationships and you don't know what you're going into. It's like a gift. When somebody sends you a gift, you need to unwrap that gift to know the content. So wisdom is profitable now to direct us to know that you need to ask questions. When you are courting, ask every and any possible question about your spouse. You're going into a relationship of a lifetime that you're going to be bringing about another generation of you. So you need to be careful and go into that relationship with notice so that you don't bring about generational problems. There could be problems from mental health issues, hereditary issues, out of ill health. So I will advise us very strongly that we need to, pay attention to those kind of detail when getting ready to marry. Now, peradventure, you're in the relationship already. I'll encourage you to be patient with your spouse and at least seek counsel. Don't cut yourselves off. Be patient with one another. Even if there is a medical report that says you only have 5 months to live, do you know you can still do it for another couple of years if you seek counsel and you're a good patient? You listen to your doctor and then, you take instructions and abide by them. A lot of us keep saying, oh, it's something that is going to kill a man. One day you're going to die. But for God's sake, you can still be alive and healthy for as much as God will permit you, but with counsel and with wisdom. So I see somebody has asked a question now. What do you do in a situation whereby some medical issues are kept hidden before marriage and then you find out after marriage? Thank you very much. So, like I said before, any relationship that is going to stand the test of time must be built on love, must be built on trust and empathy for one another. Now, for a spouse to hide that medical condition is going to be a major trust issue. So if you have now found out what it is, you have to now do an evaluation yourself. Is it a condition that can be healed? And if it can be healed, can the person be helped? Another question I want to ask is that did the person is it just one time thing that is only this medical condition the person has hidden? Are there other things that are being hidden from you? So you now have to sit down and evaluate it. Can your spouse be trusted? If the person cannot be trusted, can you continue to live on in that relationship? Can you manage that kind of relationship? Because if a relationship is not built on trust, is headed for, I don't know. I don't want to say it's not headed in the right direction. It's an unhealthy relationship. So you need to make up your mind what you want to do. But there are cases where the person now finds out after marriage that this is what the situation is. So I've given like 4 or 5 things that you could do to at least help the person to go through the health situation and possibly live longer than even the medical report has said. So I hope, Flo, I've answered your question. You need to evaluate the trust situation. Can you continue to live with it? If you can, do you want to give your spouse a chance? And if you are giving him a chance, you need to go through it together. But where there's a constant record, there's a constant pattern of lack of trust, you have to decide whether you can still go on with that relationship or not. So maybe you also need to seek professional counseling. There may be other underlying factors that could have led to the person lying to you. Maybe for whatever reason, the person's reason for getting married to you. So at Startright Academy, we're able to take it further with you. So if you want to know more, you may want to get in touch with us and we'll be able to help you dig deep and find out why maybe the person did what he or she did. David says, what do you do when your spouse is comfortable not being emotionally attached to you? They say things like, we are only married, it is not compulsory to live together. Wow. Well, what I expect you to do before getting married is to find out why the two of you are even getting married in the first place. What does marriage mean to you? What does marriage mean to your spouse? So in this situation, are you saying that the people are married or okay, no, let me try and read it again. What do you do when your spouse is comfortable not being emotionally attached to you? Wow. They say things like we're only married, it's not compulsory we live together. Okay, so emotionally, I don't know how a marriage will work without being emotionally attached. Marriage is built on love, is built on commitment, and so that means that if there's only one person in that relationship, that person is not necessarily committed to that relationship. So if that is the situation, you may need to do some level of counseling. Maybe there are some things that has happened, maybe there are underlying factors why that person is behaving like that. If maybe you need to do some you need to go for counseling. So we're able to do that for you at Startright Academy. So please get in touch with me after this session. Let's dig deep and find out what the underlying issues are. But if somebody is not emotionally vested, then what are you really doing in that relationship? But like I said, if for people to, before you get married, you need to define what marriage means to both of you. And, so that does this align with both of your values? Because it looks like from what you're saying, one person is in it and the other person is not. So is there really a marriage? That's a question we should be asking ourselves. Flo says, also given that a partner knows the health challenge of the other partner, they both go into the marriage with the hope of seeking help as the marriage grows. Then the affected partner suddenly backs out due to frustration. Now, let me understand you. Also, given that a partner knows the health challenges of the other partner, they both go into the marriage with the hope of seeking help as the marriage grows. Then the affected partner suddenly backs out. So if I understand your question, they both knew what the medical condition was and went into it, trusting that they can work through it, whether medically or through counseling. So the person that backs out now is the one with the challenge. Due to frustration and lack of will to forge ahead, what do? There's nothing you can do. You can't keep a person bound in the marriage. If the person is saying, I can no longer, continue with you because of a health challenge, you can't hold them bound because there really is a challenge, So that's why you need to count the cost before you go into it in the first place, because love is a dangerous game and love is not really blind. You need to open your eyes and know what you're going into. That's why at Startright Marriage Academy, we're very passionate about laying the right foundations for marriage. And so courtship is not a time for intimacy as such, but it's a time for questioning. When I say intimacy, I mean consummating the marriage. You should take your time to know whom you're getting married to. So it's a lot of heartache to go halfway and the person is going from a condition you both knew from the beginning that this is there. So somebody has backed off halfway through. You can't keep them bound in the marriage. So the person with the medical condition should not feel hopeless, should get help medically and also counseling because of their mental health. And I'm praying that the person will be able to get healed and heal from the past trauma that they've gone through because of that marriage. Another question. Okay, so I think those are the questions. I don't know if I've answered your question, David. And Flo, are you satisfied with my answer, please? Okay, so does anybody have any contribution? Maybe you want to share an experience you have gone through. You may want to share some ideas with us. Maybe there's something. I don't claim to know it all. I'd like to hear from you as well. Okay, Flo says I've answered her question. But if you need any further, counseling, I'll be happy to have a session with you, because some of these things are not, there's not a one cap fits all. Maybe there are underlying issues that the person is behaving the way they are behaving. And people get married for different reasons. So maybe they agreed in the first place, and maybe they've gotten what they needed from you, and then they've decided to move on with their lives. So things happen. So we don't want to be a victim of negative circumstances. That's why you need to prepare right to get married. Okay. Thank you very much, Flo. Thank you, David. I see you, Lasma. I see you, Eno. Thank you so much for being part of tonight's, for being part of today's live stream. Chinedu, oh, Mr. Mobi, thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, great. So in the absence of any other questions, I don't want to keep us unnecessarily longer than we've been. If you have any questions, we're very happy at Start Right Academy to help you resolve them. Our prayer and desire is that every marriage will be strong and healthy. But one of the ways to prevent unnecessary heartaches is to get it right from the beginning. So our passion, our desire, our joy at Start Right Academy is to see you doing marriage with joy, and your marriage should stand the test of time. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming around tonight. I wish you a fantastic weekend. Enjoy the rest of your evening. God bless you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.